something unprecedented just happened. Minutes ago, the remaining crew members of Mountain Monsters released a joint statement about an incident that's haunted them since 2019, an encounter so disturbing that it caused production to shut down for 8 months and left the team questioning whether they should continue hunting at all. For years, fans noticed something changed after Season 7. The energy was different. The crew seemed more cautious, more serious, less willing to venture into certain areas. Team members who used to charge fearlessly into the woods now hesitated at tree lines, and one location, a place they simply call the Hollow, was permanently marked as off-limits, with no explanation ever given, until now. The statement was posted simultaneously across all crew members' personal social media accounts, not the official show accounts, but their personal pages, suggesting this wasn't sanctioned by the network. The post was simple, direct, and chilling. "We need to tell you what really happened in the Hollow. We need to tell you why we almost quit. We need to tell you what followed us home. Before we go further, subscribe now if you're fascinated by cryptids and the unexplained, because what the Mountain Monsters crew is about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about what's lurking in Appalachia." The statement began with an apology from John Trapper Tice, the team leader who's been investigating Appalachian monsters for over 40 years. "We've always been honest with y'all about what we encounter out there," Trapper wrote, his usual confidence replaced with something heavier. "But there's one hunt we've never talked about, one creature we tracked that we can't explain, and one night that broke something in all of us." He was referring to March 2019, during what was supposed to be a routine investigation in the hills of southern West Virginia. The team had received reports of livestock mutilations, standard stuff for them. Farmers described finding cattle drained of blood with surgical precision cuts that didn't match any known predator. Worse, witnesses reported seeing something that walked on 2 legs, stood over 7 feet tall, and moved through the forest without making a sound. The crew assumed they were tracking a Grassman variant or possibly a rogue Sasquatch. They'd dealt with dozens of these investigations. This should have been straightforward. "We were wrong," Trapper wrote. "We were so damn wrong." The team, Trapper, Jeff, Willie, Wild Bill, and Huckleberry, arrived at the location on March 23, 2019, just after sunset. Local law enforcement had advised them not to go, which was unusual. Cops in Appalachia are generally supportive of the Ames team, often sharing information and helping with access to remote areas. But the sheriff who met them at the trailhead was different. He was nervous, kept looking over his shoulder at the tree line, and spoke in a low voice, as if afraid something might hear him. "You boys need to understand something," the sheriff told them, according to Wild Bill's account. "This ain't like your other hunts. People don't come back right from that hollow. Some don't come back at all." When Willie asked what he meant by "don't come back right," the sheriff just shook his head and walked away. But before he left, he turned back and said something that none of them forgot. "If you hear it calling your names, don't answer. No matter how much it sounds like someone you know, don't you dare answer." The team laughed it off at the time. They'd heard plenty of local superstitions, but as Jeff wrote in his portion of the statement, "We should have listened. God help us. We should have turned around right then." The first 3 hours of the investigation were normal. They set up thermal cameras, deployed motion sensors, and split into 2 groups to cover more ground. The forest was unusually quiet. No birds, no insects, no ambient wildlife sounds, but that often happened in areas with apex predators. Around 11:47 p.m., Huckleberry's radio crackled with Wild Bill's voice. "We got tracks, fresh ones. You need to see this." The team regrouped at Wild Bill's location, where they found prints unlike anything they'd encountered before. They were roughly humanoid, but wrong. The toes were too long, the heel too narrow, and the depth of the impression suggested something far heavier than a human but distributed differently than a bear or primate. "The prints went deep," Willie explained in his statement. "Real deep. Like whatever made them was carrying enormous weight. But here's the thing that made my skin crawl. They were perfectly silent. We found tracks showing this thing had walked within 20 feet of our position, and none of us heard a damn thing. They followed the tracks deeper into the hollow, the terrain becoming steeper and more treacherous. The trees grew denser, blocking out the moonlight. Their flashlight beams seemed to get swallowed by the darkness, not penetrating as far as they should. That's when Jeff heard his name. "Jeff, Jeffrey." It was his mother's voice, crystal clear, coming from deeper in the woods. The same tone she'd used when he was a child, calling him home for dinner. The problem? Jeff's mother had been dead for 3 years. "I froze," Jeff wrote. "Every rational part of my brain knew it wasn't real, knew my mama was gone, but it sounded exactly like her. Same voice, same inflection, same slight accent, and it was calling me home." Trapper grabbed Jeff's arm, stopping him from walking toward the voice. "Don't," Trapper said, remembering the sheriff's warning. But then they all heard it. Different voices, calling different names. Wild Bill heard his late father. Willie heard his ex-wife. Huckleberry heard his childhood best friend who died in a car accident in 1987. And Trapper heard something that made him go pale. He heard his own voice calling to him from the darkness. "It was me," Trapper wrote. "My voice, my words, my cadence, calling out to the team, telling them I'd found the creature, telling them to follow me deeper into the hollow. But I was standing right there. I wasn't the one talking. Something else was using my voice." The team huddled together, backs to each other, flashlights sweeping the tree line. The voices continued, growing more insistent, more desperate. Jeff's mother began pleading with him to come help her. She was hurt. She needed him. Wild Bill's father started getting angry, demanding to know why his son was ignoring him. Then the voices started overlapping, creating a chorus of the dead and the duplicated, all calling from the darkness. That's when Wild Bill's thermal camera picked up something that made him lower the device and stare at the screen in disbelief. "There were 7 heat signatures surrounding us," Wild Bill recounted. 7 human-shaped thermal readings, standing just beyond the tree line, completely still. We counted ourselves, 5 people. We were surrounded by something that was warm-blooded, man-sized, and perfectly motionless. Jeff made the decision to use the flare camera to get a better look. He raised it, aimed at the nearest signature, and looked through the viewfinder. What he saw made him drop the camera. "It looked like Trapper," Jeff wrote, his words conveying the horror even through text. "Standing there in the trees, wearing Trapper's clothes. Same build, same stance. But its head was tilted at an angle that wasn't right, and it was smiling. Not a human smile. Too wide, too many teeth, like something that had studied smiling but didn't understand the emotion behind it." Jeff spun around to confirm Trapper was still with the group. He was, standing right there, very much not smiling. But when Jeff looked back through the FLIR, the Trapper thing was closer. It had moved 15 feet in the 2 seconds Jeff had looked away, and it had done so in complete silence. "Run," Trapper commanded, and the team didn't question him. They ran back the way they came, or tried to. The trail had changed. Landmarks they'd noted on the way in were gone. The path they'd followed was no longer there, replaced by dense undergrowth that looked like it had been undisturbed for decades. Behind them, the voices followed, but now they were changing, distorting. Jeff's mother began speaking in his voice. Wild Bill's father started sounding like Willie. The voices were blending, shifting, learning. "We realized it wasn't trying to lure us separately," Willie explained. "It was learning us. Learning our voices, our patterns, our relationships. It was studying how we communicated so it could replicate us better." The team became disoriented in the darkness, unable to find their way out. Every direction looked the same. Every trail led in circles, and the thermal signatures kept appearing on their cameras, always just at the edge of visibility, always perfectly still until they looked away. Huckleberry, the team's tracker and navigator, made a disturbing discovery. "We kept crossing our own footprints," he wrote, "but some of the prints were facing the wrong direction, like we'd walked the same path backward, or like something else had been walking in our footsteps, matching our stride perfectly." At 2:33 a.m., they stumbled into a small clearing. In the center was a circle of stones arranged in a pattern none of them recognized, and standing around the circle were the figures, all 7 of them. 5 looked like perfect copies of the team members. Same clothing, same equipment, same physical appearance, but something was wrong with their proportions. Their arms hung slightly too long, their necks bent at angles that suggested too many vertebrae. Their eyes reflected the flashlight beams like an animal's, bright and unnatural. The other 2 figures were incomplete. One had Trapper's face, but Wild Bill's body. The other had features that kept shifting, flickering between different team members as if it couldn't decide which one to mimic. "They didn't attack us," Trapper wrote. "They just stood there, watching, breathing in sync with us. When Jeff took a step back, his copy took a step back. When Willie raised his flashlight, his copy raised its arm at the exact same time. They were mirroring us, and I realized with absolute horror that they were waiting to get it right, waiting to perfect their imitation." Wild Bill, always the bravest and most impulsive, shouted at the creatures, "What the hell are you?" The Trapper copy tilted its head further, that too wide smile growing impossibly wider, and spoke in Trapper's exact voice. "We are what remains when you leave. We are what fills the space you occupied. We are the echo that doesn't fade." Then all 7 figures spoke in unison, using all 5 team members' voices simultaneously. "You've been here before. You'll be here again. You never really leave." That's when Huckleberry noticed something that made his blood run cold. Behind the stone circle, in the darkness beyond the clearing, were more figures, dozens of them. Some looked like hikers, wearing clothing from different decades. Some looked like hunters in old-fashioned gear. Some looked like people who'd been lost in these woods long ago, and they were all standing perfectly still, faces blank, eyes reflecting the light, waiting. "The Hollow collects," Trapper wrote. "That's what we understood in that moment. The Hollow collects people, not their bodies, but their patterns, their essence. It creates copies and keeps them there, trapped in a loop of existence, forever walking the same paths, forever calling out to new visitors, forever adding to its collection." The team ran again, this time with pure survival instinct overriding everything else. They crashed through underbrush, fell down slopes, ignored injuries and exhaustion. Behind them, they could hear footsteps, multiple sets of footsteps, matching their pace perfectly. Jeff glanced back once and saw his own face running behind him, keeping pace, mirroring his movements exactly, except for that horrible wrong smile. They burst out of the tree line at 4:17 a.m., nearly 7 hours after they'd entered. Their vehicles were there, untouched, but something was wrong. The sheriff was still there, sitting in his patrol car, watching the woods. "You boys made it out," the sheriff said, but he didn't sound relieved. He sounded disappointed, resigned. "Most don't first time." "First time?" Willie demanded. "What the hell do you mean, first time?" The sheriff looked at each of them carefully, studying their faces, their mannerisms. "Just making sure all of you came back," he said cryptically. "Sometimes something else comes out wearing their faces. You can usually tell by the eyes. The copies never get the eyes quite right." He drove away without another word, leaving the team standing there, looking at each other with sudden suspicion and horror. How would they know if one of them wasn't really them anymore? The aftermath was worse than the encounter itself. "We all started experiencing the same thing," Jeff wrote. "We'd see ourselves, not in mirrors that we could dismiss as stress, but out in the world. I'd be at the grocery store and catch a glimpse of myself in the parking lot, standing perfectly still, watching me from between cars. Wild Bill said he saw himself standing in his backyard at 3 a.m. just staring at his house. Willie's neighbors asked why he was walking around his block at midnight when Willie had been asleep in bed. The team tried to return to normal filming, but the encounters continued. During a hunt in Kentucky 2 months later, Trapper's audio recorder picked up his own voice, whispering things he'd never said. In Tennessee, Huckleberry's motion-activated camera captured footage of Huckleberry walking past the camera, while Huckleberry was asleep in the tent 50 yards away. "We couldn't tell anyone," Trapper explained. "How do you explain to a production company that you might have brought something back, that there might be copies of us out there, getting better at imitating us, learning our lives, studying how to replace us?" The team consulted with experts, not cryptozoologists or paranormal investigators, but psychologists, neurologists, anyone who might explain what they were experiencing. The consensus was stress-induced hallucinations brought on by a shared traumatic experience. But then came the incident that forced them to speak out. 3 weeks ago, Jeff's wife called him in a panic. She'd been at home alone when she heard the front door open. She called out, thinking it was Jeff coming home early. Footsteps walked down the hall. She heard breathing outside the bedroom door. Then Jeff's voice, "Honey, I'm home." But Jeff was at a team meeting 3 hours away. He had witnesses. He was definitely not at home. His wife, terrified, locked herself in the bathroom and called the police. When officers arrived, they found the front door unlocked, muddy footprints leading down the hall to the bedroom door, then stopping. The prints matched Jeff's boots exactly. Same size, same wear pattern, same unique scuff on the left sole, but the prints didn't lead back out. They just stopped, as if whoever or whatever had made them had simply ceased to exist at that spot. "That's when we knew we had to go public," Jeff wrote, "because whatever came back with us from the Hollow, it's not content to just watch anymore. It's getting closer. It's learning our homes, our families, our lives, and we don't know how to stop it." The crew's statement ended with a warning and a plea. "If you're planning to go into the Appalachian wilderness, especially the areas we've investigated, please reconsider," Trapper wrote. "And if you go anyway, follow these rules. Never go alone. Never answer if you hear your name called. Never follow voices that sound familiar. If you see someone you know standing too still or smiling wrong, turn around immediately. And most importantly, if you encounter something that looks exactly like someone in your group, make sure you can account for where that person actually is before you approach it." The statement concluded with something that sent chills through every fan who read it. "We've decided to continue hunting because something needs to document these creatures and warn people. But we're also continuing because we have to. Because whatever is in the Hollow has part of us now. It knows us, it can find us, and the only way we stay ahead of it is by staying together, by staying alert, and by never ever going back to that place. We just hope we all stay us, Within minutes of the statement being posted, the comments exploded. Hundreds of people reported similar experiences in Appalachia. Hikers who'd seen their own doppelgangers on trails, campers who'd heard their voices calling from the woods when they were safely in their tents, hunters who'd encountered something that looked like their partner but moved wrong, spoke wrong, smiled wrong. One comment stood out, posted by a user with no profile picture and an account created minutes before. "The Hollow thanks you for the introduction. Your faces have been very useful. We're getting better at wearing them." The comment was deleted within seconds, but not before dozens of people screenshot it. The account vanished entirely, as if it had never existed. And then, this morning, something else happened. A hiker in West Virginia posted a trail camera photo to social media. The camera had been set up to capture wildlife near a remote trail. In the photo, standing in a perfect line on the trail, were 5 figures. They were too far away to make out clearly, but their silhouettes matched the Mountain Monsters team exactly. Same heights, same builds, same postures. But according to the timestamp, the photo was taken yesterday, and according to the team's social media, they were all at a convention in Pennsylvania yesterday, 300 miles away. One commenter enhanced the image, zooming in on the figures' faces. The resolution was poor, pixelated, but you could make out enough detail to see one thing clearly. All 5 figures were smiling, the same too wide smile, the same wrong expression, and they were looking directly at the camera as if they knew it was there, as if they wanted to be seen, as if they were ready. The Mountain Monsters crew has broken their silence, but in doing so, they may have revealed something worse. Whatever is in the Hollow isn't content to stay there. It's patient, it's learning, it's waiting for the right moment to step out of the forest and into the lives of the people it's been studying. And the question that haunts everyone who's read their statement is simple but terrifying. How many of the people walking around are actually people? How many are copies, echoes, things that learned to wear human faces and are now living human lives, while the originals are still trapped somewhere in the darkness, calling out names that will never be answered? The crew wanted to break their silence. They wanted to warn people, but in revealing what happened in the Hollow, they may have also revealed that it's already too late, that whatever followed them out is already here, already among us, already perfecting its disguise. And maybe, just maybe, the crew members who posted that statement aren't the real ones anymore. Maybe the real Trapper, Jeff, Willie, Wild Bill, and Huckleberry are still in the Hollow, still trapped, still watching their copies live their lives. How would we even know? If this story disturbed you, subscribe and share this video. Let us know in the comments if you've ever encountered your own doppelganger or heard your voice calling from somewhere you weren't. And if you ever go hiking in Appalachia, remember the crew's warning. Some things in those mountains don't just watch, they learn, they copy, they wait, and sometimes they come home with you. The Mountain Monsters crew broke their silence, but maybe silence would have been safer, because now, whatever is out there knows we're talking about it. And if there's one thing that's become clear from their statement, it's this. The things in the Hollow don't like being ignored, but they love being acknowledged. And we just gave them all the acknowledgement they needed.